New reports tonight that General Motors is stepping up its preparations for a possible bankruptcy. General Motors, however, still hoping to win concessions from both creditors and unions to stay in business. The Obama administration has set a June 1st deadline for General Motors to put in place a plan for restructuring or be forced into bankruptcy. Detroit, obviously part of Thaddeus McCotter's district, and he joins us here tonight. I know this is going to be a difficult time for all of the folks, not just General Motors and Chrysler and Detroit, the automobile industry, but everyone in your district, everyone in the state of Michigan, in fact, the whole country.
Yes, Lou, it's absolutely right. One of the things that's most pressing upon the people of Michigan and the manufacturing community in general is the uncertainty about the process that is currently taking place regarding the restructuring. The administration said that 50,000 jobs between Chrysler and GM were not enough to show viability. And yet in
the
place,
elimination of 50,000.
The elimination. And so in their place, they've not given us what number they think will be viable in the future. Instead, they've given us policy goals, not a path to profitability that the companies can follow and the people in Michigan and throughout America can know with certainty what's going to happen to them.
Fritz Henderson, the new CEO of General Motors, indicating that he is prepared for the possibility of that bankruptcy and is accelerating those preparations. Do you have any signals that is a greater likelihood tonight than it was, say, a week ago?
Clearly, Fritz Henderson is very smart. He would be not doing his job if he were not preparing for an eventuality the administration has said there is a substantial likelihood of occurring. But GM and Chrysler in its own situation want to avoid bankruptcy. That's why they're going to do everything they can with the unions to try to get the bondholders to the table and do the best they can to beat that deadline to avoid the bankruptcy. But he has to, as a part of his due diligence, understand that that's a distinct likelihood if the restructuring doesn't successfully take place.
When I talked with him here last week, I got the distinct impression that he was still hopeful that he could negotiate with both his unions and the bondholders, the creditors of the company. Do you have that? Do you share that? Well, I won't put it that way. I won't call it optimism. Are you as confident tonight as you would be, say, a week ago?
What I'd really like to know, Lou, to have any confidence in the bondholders is, are there bondholders with GM bonds that have credit default swaps with AIG? Because as you know, what happens is they get par value if you go into bankruptcy. This means that an attempt to get the bondholders to the table would be futile because they would make out better in bankruptcy, and the very workers' tax dollars would be used to reward them for the effort. I've sent a letter to Geithner, sent a letter to Bernanke asking, are there bondholders of GM that have credit default swap / insurance with AIG, and if so, in what amounts, so that as we restructure, we know what everyone has at the table or under it. I've yet to get my response.
Well, one hopes that you'll get that straight away, and I'm sure that the Treasury Secretary has considered that possibility. Turning to General Motors, it's clear that there's going to be a tremendous negative impact, again, either way that this goes, on the people of Detroit, the people of Michigan. Where does Detroit go from here? Whether it's a structured or prepackaged bankruptcy, whether it is a regular bankruptcy, whether you avoid bankruptcy, there still will be a tremendous cut in employment in Detroit. Where do we go from here?
As we already have the highest unemployment rate in the country, and we are expecting an economic Katrina for the auto industry. Even with both options, one or the other, that will happen. But we face it with a grim determination that we'll get through this. This is the arsenal of democracy. This is an engine of prosperity. These are the people who put the world on wheels. It's going to be very painful. We know that. But we expect to prove the critics wrong in the end and have a viable auto industry. And to tie it back to what you've been talking about with some of the overseas competitors we have, there are many nations such as Communist China that would love to have an auto industry. It's time for Americans to understand why it's important for us to keep our own as well.
All right, we'll leave it there. And I'll say absolutely. Congressman, good to have you with us. Thaddeus McCotter. A reminder now to vote in our poll.